Hello, everybody. Welcome to the quarterly member meeting for HDC. Just give folks another minute or two to come into the meeting room. Nathan, I assume you're admitting people. Maybe you can just tell me when the admits slow down. Okay, thumbs up. And Lauren, one quick question. Do you want to do the sponsor thanks and the acknowledgement, or do you want me to do that? Tell you what, I'll do it. Okay, let's get started, everybody. Thank you for coming to the HDC quarterly meeting. It's a slightly different time and length because we have a big program. We're doing our regular annual funder update. So we're going to have a rich conversation from our funders about what's going on in their world. And you all know it's a lot. So we want to dedicate plenty of time to that conversation. It's fun to see all your faces. Miss you all, so thanks for coming. All right, first of all, thanks to our meeting sponsors, BECU and Sunberg Kennedy Lai Ao Young Architects. Appreciate your support. And then we do want to acknowledge that we are all, wherever we are today, on the unceded ancestral lands of the Coast Salish peoples, the traditional home of all tribes and bands within the Duwamish, Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. We cannot work to fulfill our mission and our vision of an anti-racist present if we don't first acknowledge and recognize the true history and cost of colonization. So with that, we have just a couple business items that we want to do, and then we'll launch into our panel. So, voting instructions. You will be asked to vote on both the approval of the minutes and the slate of new members through the SurveyMonkey link that you see there. Nathan has just put it into the chat, so you should be able to just click on that. And it's just a quick yes/no vote, but that is important to us in order for us to, as an organization, pass our minutes and admit new members, because you all are the decision makers with regard to new members. So if we can proceed, then we'll just go to the new, I think we have two new candidates for consideration at today's meeting. The first is Advanced Architectural Products. And I believe is that you, Todd, that I see on the phone?
That's me, Brian.
Great, nice to meet you, Todd. Would you say a few words about your organization and your interest in joining HDC?
Absolutely. I previously was a member when I was with DuPont Tyvek. Unbelievable what HDC does for the overall low-income population or people, and have been a longtime advocate and friend of Marty. advanced architectural products. So obviously, I'm the territory manager for Washington State with this company. We manufacture a product called Green Girt, which is and the Smart CI systems. It's a thermal break for continuous insulation. And as we know, with the energy codes continuing to advance, that the resin insulation, mineral wool, spray foams, polyiso, XPS will all be continuing to advance into our construction process. How we differentiate our products from the competition is we work with architects, consultants, and the GCs, and each project has to be looked at our in-house engineered and make sure that our product's going to work with as it has been designed by the architect as far as fastening or retention of the R values and our products an FRP, but it's a combination of metal and FRP hybrid. So we have the metal insert for pull strength. And so with that, we can do AI presentations for the architects. Like I said, in-house engineering, we won't let a project go out without it being looked at and make sure our product's going to fit with it. I do on-site install training with the installers and GCs. We work closely with the consultants. Brad Carmichael and is one of them that we've worked with on projects that I know that the HDC membership knows well. And overall, on commercial installation, we also have a smart CI 2-in-1 system, which would be your resin insulation with the WRB either behind or over the top. We have a 2.5-in-1 and a 3-in-1 where you don't need to use the sheathing. You can use our product with the resin insulation, and we will take that resin insulation into our factories and custom fit it to each project. So you again retain that R value and energy savings and water intrusion prevention that we all look for in our projects. So I would appreciate to continue on with the membership and help with the cause.
Thank you, Todd.
See everybody.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you for being interested in our work and joining our big tent. I'm sure that the architects and engineers and contractors on this call understood what you just said much better than I did. But it's nice to have those skill sets in the organization so that you can help support us in this work. So thank you, Todd.
Thanks, Brian.
The other new member candidate is the Nehemiah Initiative Seattle, and we have a pillar of the community here to speak to that member's interests. Donald King, would you say a few words about your organization?
Sure, I'm Donald King, and I'm president and CEO of the Nehemiah Initiative Seattle. And Nehemiah Initiative is a program that is an organizing and advocacy program for the assisting of our historically Black faith-based organizations in the development of their unused and underused properties for the development of mixed use and affordable housing, mixed use projects and affordable housing. We found over the years that a number of our faith-based organizations have been struggling with the threat of displacement, as well as others in central Seattle have. Other people of color, particularly African Americans, and along with the loss of residences and business spaces, our institutional spaces are also threatened with displacement. And one of those is a very critical institution is the Black church. The Black church has a history going back a couple hundred years as being the primarily organizing element and community builder for Black communities throughout the history of the United States. It is the largest organization to provide services to the Black community, to provide spaces and places for organizing political activities and financial and economic activities, and it is in danger of disappearing from the city of Seattle. We have lost over the past 10 years, a dozen churches have either closed and sold or closed and moved from Seattle. That property has been sold to primarily private developers and developed for most likely market rate housing. In almost any case that we have seen, it has been market rate housing. And we feel that churches themselves can begin to be a partner in the development of their property for what is 100% affordable housing of a range of 65 to 80% AMI. And we're looking forward to providing the assistance to those churches and the technical knowledge. And actually now with the launch of our Sankofa Beloved Community Development Fund, funding for pre-development services to get those institutions into their first mile of development activities. If there's any other information you'd like to learn about the Nehemiah Initiative Seattle, you can go to nehemiahinitiativeseattle.org for our newly launched website and learn more about the organization. We're in our startup year in 2021, and we're moving along quite briskly and having some great successes at what our intentions are and our goals and objectives to do within the community.
Thank you, Donald. That's fantastic. Congratulations on your startup and welcome to the HDC effort. We appreciate you joining us and helping us with this work. I'm excited to learn about your successes as you go forward. So the new member candidates and the meeting minutes will be voted on together. The meeting minutes are in a link that Nathan posted in the chat. I assume there's a business meeting packet link. So if you want to take a look at those, if you haven't seen them yet, please click on that. You can review the minutes and then do your vote. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call for a motion and a second. And this may not be Robert's Rules of Order, but I'm going to ask someone in particular to move and second because of the screen. So Philippa Nye, I see you there. Would you mind moving? And
so moved.
Naomi, I see you right below Philippa. Would you mind seconding? How about Lindsay? Lindsay Masters, would you mind seconding?
Second.
Great. So now please go to the link and sometime in the next hour or so and make sure you make that vote. It's important. All right, Lauren, did I cover everything? Shall I introduce the panel? Okay. So again, we have a lot going on in our affordable housing world. All of it exciting, some of it scary. And so our guides, the public funders, are going to talk us through what's going on right now. So I'm just going to list who the organizations that are speaking, but I'm going to ask them each to introduce themselves. Okay, so we'll go in this order: WCRA, Office of Housing, King County, Arch, the State Housing Finance Commission, and then Commerce. Okay, so Dulcie, will you start us out? You're on mute, Dulcie.
Thank you, Brian. So the Washington Community Reinvestment Association, or WCRA, and we can go to the next slide. We are a private nonprofit lending consortium. We currently have 33 banks and they provide the bulk of our funding. Banks joined for the opportunity to do more CRA eligible lending in a risk sharing environment. We have additional funding from the Finance Commission in this Capital Plus partnership. That is for, the lending is for small and emerging nonprofits that their loans are too small to really make it efficient to do bonds. And they also would have trouble getting good financing from traditional lenders. So that's what this program is all about, and it's been really successful. The newest, and we can switch slides here, the newest lending pool that we have is the Well Fund. This was just coming out last year, and we've since done quite a few loans. We're finally getting our feet under us, I think. This fund relies on money from the Department of Commerce, and that we have some foundation funders also. It leverages the WCRA product that would fund. We would use the Economic Development Fund for childcare space. So our funding. So for any project loan, it would be approximately 50-50 with our money and then the Well Fund. The Well Fund is a 0.5 point, and then our loan for a 20-year childcare facility, assuming a forward rate lock, would be 5 1/8 today. So you can see that by blending that 0.5 point with that higher price loan, that it ends up being a pretty good rate. And that's the objective, so that we can create more childcare space. We did get some new money from the legislature this year. We have that. It has not yet been decided how it's going to be broken out between grants and loans. So we will put that on our blog once that number is known. Our first funding was for $5 million, and we pretty much went through that all. So we do expect that we'll go through all of this money. Our partners in the Well Fund are Craft 3. They do a different type of lending for childcare. And then Enterprise, I've got Juanita's contact information up here. She is the intake person. Eligibility is about providing access to low-income families, which pretty much means you have to take subsidies. And then also there has to be a commitment long-term to use of that space for childcare. Next slide. This is the bad news. Interest rates have gone up significantly since last year. The rates on the screen are for housing. Our economic development program rates are a little bit higher, but you can see that we've gone up almost a point over the last year, which is a bummer. So if anyone talked about a pro forma with me last year, you need to revisit that because you're going to need to rework it a little bit, probably. That's all I'm going to say on that. And then our reminders, next slide. This is just because these are little weird miscellany things. We generally do long-term loans, but we do have short-term loans for those properties that are undecided about what their next steps are, and they've got a maturing loan, say. So those 3, 5, and 7-year loans have no prepayment penalty. And of course, the rates are lower than our longer-term loans. We do finance manufactured home communities and RV parks. We finance 2 models in terms of ownership, both the co-op model, in which residents join together and form a legal entity and buy the park. That's generally done with a technical assistant, or that's the only way we would do it. And then the other model is with nonprofit ownership. Both have been pretty successful. So we are definitely, that's an important source of affordable housing, and we are definitely open to receiving those calls. And then in terms of economic development loans, we talked about childcare, but the other use for this program is when you have commercial space in, say, a tax credit project, and you could use, really, you can do it for any, you can use that space for pretty much anything, even straight retail, as long as it's part of an affordable housing project. And that's, next slide, I guess, that's really all I wanted to say. The website does have quite a bit of information on it. If you don't find what you need, please give me a call or shoot me an email. That's it.
Great, thank you, Dulcie. I failed to say that if people have questions, if they could put those in the chat. We have such a large group that I don't think we're going to do this by open floor. So please put your questions in the chat. Obviously, you can email directly with any of these representatives as well. But it'd be great if you ask questions in the chat, because I'm sure that will benefit everyone in the conversation.
And then, Brian, we were going to moderate a little differently this panel in terms of we've put together a combined funders presentation. And so I was just going to help moderate based on the slides,
great.
and have each of the participants just do a quick intro. And then we've kind of integrated a presentation for you all. So.
Oh, okay, great. I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. So shall I hand it over to you, Lisa, and you take it from here?
That'd be great if you don't mind.
I don't mind. You're on.
All right. So thank you,
you.
Dulcie. We had already talked about Dulcie kind of doing her thing and then kind of chiming in as we get through our presentation. But if we could just do quick introductions. I'm Lisa Vatsky with the Washington State Housing Finance Commission. I am the Director of Multifamily Housing and Community Facilities. And then from the City of Seattle.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lori Olson. I'm the Capital Investments Manager for the City of Seattle's Office of Housing. Nice to be with you today.
And then King County folks.
Hi, I'm Tina Olvanen with King County's Housing Finance Program. And I also have a few other King County people here, Kristen Pula with Capital Programs and Anna Strahan with Homeless Programs.
Great. And then Arch.
Hi, Lindsay Masters, Executive Manager of Arch, a regional coalition here for Eastside cities.
Great. And then commission staff.
This is Claire Petersky. I'm the manager of the bond programs at the Washington State Housing Finance Commission, and also some of the other a few stray programs like Capital Plus. Also, my internet's been unstable, so if I need to turn off my video, it doesn't mean I'm not listening or being here.
Bob Peterson, I manage the local housing tax credit program for the commission. I also manage the land acquisition program for future development.
Great. And then commerce folks.
Hi, this is Nate Lichty, Managing Director of the Housing Trust Fund, and with me is Ann Campbell, Resource Allocation and Lending Manager.
Great. So with that, if we could move to the next slide. Great. So now we'll talk about all of the different funding sources and notice of funding availability that each of us have. And I guess based on this slide, maybe we'll start with King County.
Sorry, I had to hit on mute. Okay, well, our next slide has info on our sources specifically, but I will say that we will, yeah, thank you.
Perfect.
Thanks, Lisa. King County will have a fall NOFA, and we expect to have approximately 20 million in funding available for the fall funding round. That funding will consist of approximately 9.9 million of transit-oriented development funds. Those funds are geographically allocated, and we have TOD funding specifically available in North and East King County available still. We will also have Veterans Senior Human Service Levy funding up to 3.2 million available this funding round. This includes approximately 600,000 of homeownership specific funding within the Veterans Senior Human Service Levy. We'll also have mid-behavioral health funding, RAP funding, and document recording fee funds of up to 3.4 million. And we expect to have federal home funding available up to 3.5 million. And we realize 20 million is, inadequate for the demand this funding round. And we are looking at all other available fund sources at the county to see if anything else could be added to this NOFA as we're looking at what we have as we move towards the NOFA.
Great. Then Lori, what's going on in the city?
Oh my, hi everyone. Thanks, Lisa. So similar to last year, the Office of Housing is putting forward a spring NOFA, which some of you may have seen came out about 4 weeks ago, where we're trying to be responsive this year to several initiatives. One is we continue to be wanting to be participatory and responsive to the BIPOC communities and anti-displacement efforts. This is a core value that the office has held for many, many years, and we continue to work on improving that effort and also collaborating to understand how to improve that effort. We are continuing to move money quickly, and we are trying to be responsive to the pandemic. And I know many of you saw that we put out a permanent supportive housing pilot in the summer of last year. I am very pleased to say our first project from that pilot is opening this August, with several others underway, and will be opening in subsequent months. That quick delivery of resource and quick response from our partners and our permanent supportive housing developers allows people that are going to, potentially be shortly displaced as a result of this economic crisis to move into housing right away. We are continuing to see one-time resources come available, and so we want to be responsive again. This summer, you will see a NOFA coming out called the Rapid Acquisition NOFA that is utilizing some of the one-time federal sources that are making themselves available. Thank you to the Biden administration. And you will see a similar effort to really, just carpe diem, seize the moment and try and get as many folks housed as possible. And then we also have a balanced approach, right? Because we have existing predictable resources, our wonderful Seattle Housing Levy, which has been in place for about 5 years now. And as we approach the end of the 7-year levy, that resource, is there, but it's not, it's $28 million a year. And so we have not seen the same robust response on the mandatory housing affordability revenue that we typically get, or the incentive zoning revenue. So we're anticipating fewer resources. We're trying to be conservative and smart about how those resources are deployed, knowing that they are our annual predictable resources, but also be responsive when new resources like the ARPA money comes available. Let's see. We're also just, I know there's a lot of conversation about Jumpstart. We are still waiting to hear how that's going to be employed and issued. And so we're working on that, just starting to work on that, actually. Let me make sure I get my notes here. And then just quickly, we're going to, as I've mentioned, we're doing 3 NOFAs. We did 3 NOFAs last year in response to the pandemic. We had a third NOFA similar this year. So we are trying to create a tradition of a spring round. We expect that we have about $15 million committed to that round. These projects that we anticipate being awarded in this round tend to be either 4% projects or higher income workforce housing projects, unique financing structures that allow us to move quickly and responsive when other leverage sources may not be available. So we've done, sole source projects like Mount Zion in the past, where we and the state and the county are the sole funders of that project. And then we'll have the summer NOFA with the rapid acquisition funding. This is about $40 million. This is going to be a combination of local sources, the federal home resource that all of you love and are familiar with, and treasury resources. So we're hoping to deploy that, early July and have a rolling NOFA so that people can be responsive as appropriate and we're really targeting the market, to be honest with you. We know that the market right now has buildings that are under construction that they do not plan to bring to the market and are looking to sell. That seems like the most efficient way to secure housing immediately for folks. And so that is something that we are interested in targeting, folks going out to the market and seeing if there's something available that is not occupied, but that would be ready for housing within a short period of time, like 12 months. And then, of course, we maintain our commitment to targeting opportunities for the by and the for communities. That is such an important part of our fabric and who the Office of Housing has been over the last 40 years. And we continue to want to support growth and development in the BIPOC communities and also neighborhood-based programs. So much of the work that we have done over the last 40 years has been neighborhood-based, and it's critical that we continue to maintain that unique fabric that is so awesome in our city. Finally, we'll have our fall NOFA. This will be about $20 million. So not a ton of resources. As I mentioned earlier, the predictable resources are not as robust as we want them to be. So of course, this is Seattle Housing Levy, incentive zoning program, the home federal resource, and the mandatory housing affordability resource. Continued priorities, as you all have probably gotten familiar with, where we target permanent supportive housing for homeless individuals and families, try and combat displacement, and then also a wide variety of opportunities for, portfolio rehab, community-based development. So lots of, probably the largest combination of projects that we would see in that round. I think that's all I have for this moment, and happy to answer questions as we pursue the rest of the presentation.
And then there is, should we pause for questions then if there's, why don't we pause for questions since we've got.
Sure, I'll answer some of these. So Emily Thompson asked that we also do anticipate, so the Office of Housing was lucky to secure what is dubbed the University Washington Laundry Site, which is at the Mount Baker Station. We do anticipate putting out an RFP for that site, probably in phases. It's a pretty big site. And so given the resources and the predictability of our resources this year, we probably will do it in phases. And the first phase may come out as an RFP as early as the end of this year. If I'm a betting person, I would actually bet that it would most likely come out in early 2022. There's a lot of work still yet to be done, including lot line boundary adjustments, surveys. There's going to be a lot of infrastructure conversation, including conversations with the Seattle Parks Department. And then there's a large component where the University of Washington is desiring an educational facility, early childhood educational facility. So a lot of conversations are in the works leading up to that RFP. I would expect it early 2022, if I were to guess. Hamdi, so neighborhood based as often, we often have a lot of organizations and neighborhoods that reflect community. I'm thinking of the Seattle Chinatown International District, the Central District, Rainier Beach, known for the diversity, the most diverse zip code in the country. So we want to promote and continue the work. We've had so many developments over the years that have been brought and delivered by community, by affordable housing developers that are really neighborhood based. Interim community development, SEED, Africa Town has focused on Central District, although that may broaden. So there are communities that reflect, the work that's happening to really stave off displacement that could be occurring in those neighborhoods. Del Ridge, another one. So hopefully that answers your question.
Great. Then we'll move on to Lindsay and what resources Arch has.
Great. Well, it'll be a lot shorter than Lori's remarks, but to get to the point, we've got roughly $5 million in flexible dollars. Much of that is local general funds. We have a portion of in lieu, and we have some cities beginning to pool sales tax credit revenue that they've adopted in the last year and a half. In addition to that, we've got a little over 600,000 in block grant funds, again, pooled by our local member cities. And those funds would be prioritized for acquisition activity. We know the scale of resources isn't what we need. We know that the cost of land on the east side is really high. So we encourage folks, even if they think their funding gap is going to be larger than what we have, to come talk to us. We've been successful the last couple of years in getting our cities to generate even more funding when there is an important project that is happening in their jurisdiction. Also, just to point out, our money is really flexible. So even if you've got something that's in the early stages, if you're just looking for pre-development support, those are things that we are able to do. And I think I'll save my remarks about priorities and policy context for our next slides. Happy to answer any questions also.
Great. And then Lauren, could you go back a slide? No, the other way. We wanted to focus on the local funders. NOFA's at the state level, we've both the Commerce and Commission has been doing lots of stakeholder meetings and engagement. And so I would definitely suggest you all look at our websites. We're making some pretty big policy changes, at least in our bond 4% program. At the Commission, the 9% is more or less staying the same, although we have a couple minor changes that we're making there. But then I'll also turn this over to Nate to talk briefly about the State Housing Trust Fund. And I guess I should have prefaced my opening remarks with, we're going to start with an overview of all the funding, and then we're going to get into some policy topics. But again, we wanted to try to have an integrated approach to presenting today. So with that, I'll turn it over to Nate to just do some high level talking points on the trust fund.
Thanks, Lisa, and thanks to the team that collaborated on this. I think this is organic, and hopefully we get good engagement. And I especially appreciate that you said we would do this the Commerce summary briefly. We have had two pretty lengthy presentations of our funding that we're looking at for this year. So those are available on our website. We'll put links in the chat to the presentation that we made on May 17th, and then the PAT meeting that we gave last week. In actuality, we've got, you see 5 listed there, but we've got 11 programs essentially, because we have a blend of federal funds and state funds in different program areas, or as set up by the legislature. So we're working hard on setting up the NOFAs and providing guidance on all of those, including standing up a whole new program with the rapid capital housing acquisition. A lot of the funding this year is really targeted or exclusively available for homeless projects. So we're very excited about seeing how we can together impact especially visible homelessness in this biennium, but more so in this fiscal year, because the emphasis on rapid is very clear. We have, I will note, we have a cumulative funding of about 360 million, which is extremely, which is a new benchmark year for us. And a high percentage of that is competitive, 317 million. So 88% of it is going to be allocated through competitive processes, which is really tremendous. Only about 194 million is actually going to be competitive in our traditional competitive rounds. And we're going to talk about the pipeline and demand for that $194 million. A good portion of this is the rapid capital housing acquisition. And so when we talk about the demand and the supply, the pipeline that's being developed, rapid capital housing acquisition gets a huge emphasis, and we don't know exactly what's coming. So we're kind of gearing up for that. We had 21 direct appropriations, which I think is probably on par with regular biennium. And there are not included on this, there is a new operating support funding for permanent supportive housing. And that is going to be recurring, and we're thrilled about that source being a permanent source to support permanent supportive housing. And then not in our shop, but at Commerce, there's going to be 42 million to assist with affordable housing connections, connecting fees and so forth for development, for affordable housing developments. That is going to be administered by the local government division here at Commerce, and they're working on setting up the process for the application, likely running through local municipalities. So a lot's on our plate. We've been engaging and getting input from a lot of stakeholders, and I think I'll stop there, and I think we can talk more. Rubber hits the road more when we talk about timeline. Thanks, Lisa.
Great. Yeah. So Lauren, now I guess we need to advance like 2 slides to the eye chart here, which is our timeline. And yeah, this has been a fun activity to try to get all of our dates aligned. And we realized that this could be one of the biggest things for us to talk about with you all, is all of these different dates and how these different processes are going all at the same time. And we're changing some of the ways that we're allocating funds, especially Commerce with all of the funds they have. They're phasing different funding sources at different times. So we hope this provides a little bit of a roadmap into what we're all doing. And so maybe I will kick it back to you, Nate, because I think you have kind of the most changes in terms of some of the timing issues, and we can all kind of discuss how we all overlap in terms of timing.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at it. We have been working hard at weaving this together, and we know that we're probably creating new pain points while resolving others. So and while we work through, as Commerce works through the decision-making process, and we do that collaboratively with other public funders, which has really, as it's gotten synced up over the last few years, I think created value add to the sector. We are trying to continue to do that and improve that, but we won't get into all of the reasons as to why things are changing, but I'll cover where Commerce stands. We've got 2. We're at the top and we're at the bottom of this. Oh, and we're at the middle. So we have 2 NOFAs opening up this month. We have the continuing affordability that's already been released, and then next week we're going to release the traditional round, which includes the cottages and home ownership and multifamily. We will. This is largely the same calendar, except it excludes federal funds And we will not be providing award announcements for projects that are seeking 4%. Those applications are going to be held, reviewed, and determined in April, as indicated in the calendar. I'll go down, and then the second program that we're running, the Rapid Capital Housing Acquisition, brand new timeline, still fine tuning, but the NOFA we're planning to release in early July. Have 1 month for proposals. It's a pretty high level proposal, and then make a determination. You'll see that the determination is a notice to proceed, anticipating that there's some due diligence that's going to be needed, and giving 45 days for groups to do that, make sure we are all on the same page, and then 45 days to go to contract. So it's it is compressed. It's not immediate, but it is a very compressed schedule. And you'll see that we'll do 3 NOFAs this fall. So August or July, September, and then, well, January, we'll do the 3rd one. So we've provided a lot of presentations on the formulas and the method that we're applying. Things are still being finalized and won't be locked in until July, but we will have more information there. The last one is the federal. We did pull out the federal funds. We will ask for, when applications are turned in September, I believe our application will ask whether or not you intend to apply for federal, but we've had to do that for a number of reasons. We need to strengthen compliance. Also we have more funding available, so we want to make sure people are open to it, considering it, and pursuing it, and that they're able to be compliant when they do, because federal funds we don't want to pay back. And lastly, a good portion of that is ARPA funds, and ARPA guidance won't be available till this fall. So we're going to do the federal funds collectively in December, January, and making the determination in the spring. So you can see how they maybe weave, maybe don't weave, and I'm sure there'll be some comments in the chat, but I'll turn it over to the other funders, Lisa. I hope I painted a decent picture.
Yeah, and there's a question from Naomi. So 45 to due diligence, 45 to contract, and then how long expected to close, assuming contract is not closing? Thanks
The
for your
contract,
work.
that 45 days is the closing. So contract development, negotiate. Well, we are intending to provide the contract draft at application, so that any concerns that are highlighted are notified, are provided in the application, because to keep it rapid, I think a lot of times our schedules slip, and I'll say that Commerce gets the blame when contract negotiations drag on, when in fact, our contracts are templates, and you should know what you're signing up for when you apply. You can all inform me that I'm wrong, but yes, please, we are going to try to do that, step that up, so that it's earlier in the process, so that we're not doing negotiations post due diligence period.
So then when is the matching commitment required?
The public funder matching requirement,
Seemingly.
meaning when the funds are in hand or when the funds are committed. And I honestly, we haven't spelled that out.
Okay, that was still.
But I would say that there are different thresholds.
Okay.
We are, pardon me, we are including in as a match. This has come up in a few questions. People following up. Match, is it ARPA funds are eligible match? Local public funds are eligible match. committed operating funds are eligible match. So we haven't changed those yet. Yeah, we don't intend to.
Great. Any other questions for the commerce timelines? Then King County, do you want to just run through yours, Tina?
You're on mute, Tina.
There, I found the button. Thanks. We right now are in pre-application period, and we are accepting intents to apply through June 18th, so another week. And we require a pre-application meeting in order to be able to apply in the fall. Our NOFA will come out in July. It should be the first or second week in July, and applications will be due the first or second week of September, and funding awards will occur in December, towards the end of December.
Great. And then Lori, City of Seattle.
Hi, everybody. So we currently have our spring round open. Applications are due the 30th of this month, and then we expect to award shortly sometime in July. We have this rapid acquisition NOFA similar to the state, where we're releasing this in July, but this will be a rolling NOFA, so it will be available so long as there's funding available. We do anticipate awarding quickly and getting those units online quickly to be responsive to the pandemic. And then finally, of course, the fall NOFA, which is on a standard timeline of release in July with applications due in September and then awards in December. We are thinking about, so as we have done 2 spring NOFAs in the last 2 years, because of the shift occurring at the Housing Finance Commission with a one-time-a-year opportunity in March, we are thinking about pushing up our traditional spring round, which normally is released in, say, March or February, and then with due dates later and awards in June. We are considering moving that up to a January date to allow for a broader competition if there are projects that are wanting to seek that 4% credit. We don't have resources, but that's our goal, right? So if the predictable resources come to fruition, like MHA or IZ, we would love to put out something in January to continue this pattern of having 2 NOFAs at least a year.
Great. Then Bob Peterson, could you walk us through the 9% timelines?
Thank you, Lisa. Yes, right now we have put together our preliminary proposed changes for the 2022 policies. We're hoping to present those to our board on this June 24th for approval. Then after that, we will start getting our application formats all together. And hopefully in August, we will have an intent to apply out to all people who are looking for 9% funding. Then in September, the pre-applications, we have 3 categories, are due to us, so we can review those, preliminary approval. Then hopefully in November, our 9% applications will be due. And then the awards are a little bit up in the air because we try to partner with our public funders, City of Seattle, the Metro Pools, and the Housing Trust Fund to award those all at the same time. And we would anticipate in February on making our presentation to our board for approval.
Great. And then Claire, can you walk us through the bond timing?
Yeah, no problem. Our second round of 2021 applications are due for bonds with the 4% tax credit July 14th. And because that's a middle of July application, I'm hoping that around Labor Day, we will be able to announce the allocation of bond cap at that time. Then we would be looking at also doing a letter of intent that is just like, give us a heads up of what you're planning to do in January. And then we're looking right now at a 4% tax credit bond due date in March. And we're aiming for early March. I'm hoping that you're not going to hold me necessarily to this, but because it will be a brand new process for us, but we're hoping then by the end of April to be able to
I think we lost her.
Yeah, okay. Did you lose her too? I wasn't sure if it was me or her. So I think, yeah, she was talking about when we could have awards announced on the bond round. And like Lori mentioned, we're only going to have one round in 2022. And that'll be in March with awards, potentially taking us a good 2 months to announce, but we're going to be coordinating with the Commerce at that point as well. And so we'll just need to see how long it takes. Given how we're restructuring the program, we do expect it could take a little bit longer than usual. So we will be asking for folks' patience in terms of the timing of all that. But all
Lisa,
right.
I think you skipped me, so I'm just going to jump in.
Oh, great. Thanks, Lindsay.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add. We are doing our usual fall NOFA with apps due in September, along with everybody else in awards in December. We are having some discussion with the city of Bellevue about potentially a funding round early next year, moving to a two-year funding round cycle. So more information to come on that later this year.
Great. Thanks for hopping in there. Okay, next slide. Unless anyone, so I guess we could pause. Does anyone have questions about the dates? And so do you mean for Brian's asking about September dates? Do you need for the local folks or us, or? I don't think we have an exact, oh, okay, local. Yeah, do we have exact dates?
King County doesn't have an exact date yet. I'm expecting it should be early September, the first or second week of September.
Brian, I think we're looking at September 15th. We try and get a week after Labor Day to give people time to get kids to school and Labor Day final summer plans finalized. So I think we're looking at Wednesday, September 15th.
And it looks like that's what Lindsay's got in the chat as well. And Commerce, do you have a date or no?
September 15th, I think.
Oh, there you go. That seems to be the date. Okay. Great. Then there's a question about to the Commerce. Portfolio preservation isn't included under general HTF. What is its timing? Does it follow federal?
We haven't set that, so I'm not even going to speculate. Apologies, Katie.
But stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Great. So then I think we were moving into stage ones. Is this what is basically what people have on the plate, what the lay of the land is? So again, I'll start with the county.
Okay. We have so far received 31 intents to apply from 31 different developers, adding up to 83.6 million in potential applications. And I separated that out into different areas of the county. In Seattle, we have 13 projects requesting up to 36.8 million. On the north and east sides of the county, we have 8 projects requesting 17.4 million. And in South King County, we have 10 projects requesting 29.4 million so far. And we have our intents to apply open through June 18th. So we may get in some other requests. That's all I have.
Great. And then the slides are available. Nathan put a link to them in the chat, I believe. So thank you, Nathan, for helping with that. Lori, I guess you really don't have.
I do. I just didn't put it in the presentation. I'm so sorry. Everybody's so cool. They're so cool. So we do have, I think I sent it to Lauren, but we have a, on our website, and I can put the link in the chat, our intents to apply. We have about, I would say 20 intents to apply for this year, totaling around 100 million. As I noted earlier, we do anticipate the RFP going out from the city for the UW laundry site. So that, you know, we estimate that that RFP will need about 20 million in resources from the Office of Housing. So clearly more requests than we have resources for at this time. Definitely we'll work with folks over the summer to make sure that we ensure the most competitive applications. And I will put this link in the chat so you all have it.
And it looks like it was included in the packet. So in the packet that went to HDC. So as well. Great. Okay. Commerce. What did you get? You got a bunch, didn't you?
We got a few. And I would, it took me a while to really process and acknowledge that, like I said, these stage 1 apps have nothing to do with rapid capital housing acquisition. So these will be competing for about 194 million, and that includes our traditional, includes cottages, projects set aside for those with disabilities, and our federal funding. I would ballpark that 70, 80 million would be the range of competitiveness. I'm waving my hands as if that's a declarative, like, don't hold me accountable for this. 70, 80 million. So that's the scale of competitive funding probably. So you see 107 million came in the 35 that were in King County. I also just pulled up, it represents 1.2 billion in total development costs. So if you put, if all of us put together all of our pennies in a bank and see what we could add up to, I don't know how close we'd get to 1.2, but it'll be competitive. So
great. Okay, next slide. So now, so that was the letter of intents basically, right? And I just want to pause to say that we are now going to be, the commission will be doing a very high level lay of the land letter of intent for both our 9% and our bond 4% program. So we can kind of see who's coming in, and it's really more of a lay of the land kind of thing. It'll be a 1-pager. So we are going to add a letter of intent form to our process, and that'll be in advance, at least 60 days in advance of the application funds, or the application rounds, I should say. All right, so now we kind of get into what's going on now with the world. So that's all of, we've kind of walked through all of the funding sources and where we're at with timing and availability of funds. And now we want to pivot a little to talking about what we're seeing currently with the projects that have commitments. And, you know, we are excited to get the 4% fix. It really helps in terms of bringing equity to the table. And then of course, you know, the market adjusted because of that. And so we've seen some pricing and equity values drop in the credit pricing that folks are getting. And we're starting to see, just as Dulcie alluded to earlier, some interest rate increases. And then of course, to top it all off, HUD came out with some new rent schedules, and in some areas, especially in King County, they've decreased the rents. And then of course, yeah, look at that. There's increases in material and labor costs. You know, lumber has gone through the roof, as everybody probably knows at this point. And of course, we've gotten some new wage rate schedules. So yeah, we're seeing gaps, and we're going to try to do our best to figure out how to fill those gaps and try to case by case intervene. But yeah, so I'll open it up for any one of the additional panelists to comment on any of these issues. But yeah, we're definitely seeing issues in the market right now with closing deals and with projects coming back to us with gaps. And so I know that'll impact what we have available. All those nice little charts about what's available may be impacted based on going back and trying to get these deals off the ground that have got commitments and are, 2 more steps further down their path to getting going. So with that, I'll let everyone else provide some editorial commentary.
I can start. So about on gaps on existing projects, we are seeing gaps on almost all the projects as they get their final bids in and they're getting their final construction numbers. And costs have gone up, as Lisa said. So moving existing projects that are just about ready to start construction, moving those projects forward is very important. So we are looking at the funding streams that we have available to cover those gaps so these projects can move forward to construction. And that is expected to affect the amount of funding that we have available in the NOFA. That's why I said up to X dollars on each of the funding streams, because we're looking at those funding streams to also fill the gaps and for existing projects that need to move forward before the funding round starts. And we're also looking at any other future funding streams that are coming in to hopefully fill in any of the funds that were used to fund gaps on existing projects that are trying to start construction. So that's why the numbers may change before our NOFA comes out in July. I'll stop there.
I'm taking note. You're pro, obviously. The up to language is really important in this conversation. So if I could backtrack, rewind, I said up to on our funding commitments. This is a rock and a hard place for you, for us. We don't want to see any delays. We need these units. So collectively, it's a priority to get them done. We did take the step of offering, if the project is in the pipe, has a commitment letter, that if you need to delay, that you can rescind the award and get credit and points for the next application. So we renewed that practice. I really would encourage developers to consult with your project manager at Commerce to keep them abreast of gaps. That's most essential to help elevate this. We're not gonna do an RFP for what gaps do you have. You have to be in communication with your project manager about what the status of things are. We'll try to evaluate whether federal funding, so if is applicable and could be used. So I would encourage you to communicate with your PM project manager if that's eligible in your project and you could handle it. We did institute also, if you do get an increased allocation for your project, we are going to count that towards the 2021-23 biennium per organization caps. That is to help just acknowledge that the additional funding would have been counted towards capped in the prior biennium, and we did increase the caps this year to 10 million. So I want to make sure that people are conscious of that. It doesn't mean you shouldn't. You should definitely be communicating with us, but understand that's the cost benefit.
And then, yeah, really interesting comment about a request has been sent to the Department of Commerce International Trade Division to look into removing the tariff on lumber coming in from China. Your voice to the department will help getting this tariff removed. It's a 25% tariff that ends up being 50% when we purchase from the local lumber yards, and this is mostly on plywood. So, and then Anne, I'm not sure what the 10 million per biennium is
Per organization.
Ah,
cap.
that's the cap. Okay.
Yeah, for multifamily.
Yeah, Nate did a phenomenal job of providing a high-level synopsis, and I just dive into the weeds per my usual course.
Great. Thank you.
And I'll just add, Lisa and everyone, you know, I mean, I think that, you know, part of the reflection of the low amount of resources OH is committing this year is a direct reflection of filling gaps the previous year, right? So we don't have secret bank accounts, you know, that we're hiding from you all. Every dollar we have, we put out the door because every dollar goes to producing housing. And so it is tremendous what had to be done last year without the 4% fix, you know, and I think we put out an additional, I want to say $18 million last year as a result of gaps. I would add that the development is challenging. It's always hard. It is always super hard. And if we can help you at all, balance those budgets in a different way, or if there's something that we're doing that isn't helpful in balancing budgets. But it's always hard. There's always escalations. There's always interest rate fluctuation. There's always rent fluctuation. You know, this is not new. You know, maybe there's always a tsunami or something that affects materials and labor. You know, and so we do fill gaps. We do get projects over the finish lines collectively. I think you've seen that from all of our agencies over time. It's just, you know, how do we move the ball forward, keep within budget, keep on time? That's a big reason. We often see slippage of time and closings, and that time is critical, right? You know, because had a lot of the projects closed last year that we were anticipating, they would have, you know, had better interest rates. The supply material issue wouldn't have come to fruition. So, you know, there's a lot going on, and, you know, perhaps we're not being a good enough partner to help address some of this, but, you know, we are working hard and we will fill gaps, and it is our priority to stick with the projects that we have funded to make sure those come over the finish line. But the cost of that is the future pipeline. And I regret that sometimes it reduces the amount of funds that we have to award for the future pipeline. So happy to brainstorm. Maybe this is an HDC conversation, but you know, that's what we're seeing, and all of these reasons are legitimate, and we'll work the best we can to get all the projects that we have awarded over the finish line.
Great. Any other comments then on kind of the gaps that we're seeing, the current market conditions? I don't know, Dulcie, if you wanted to add, you had already kind of kicked us off with the interest rate increase chart, which was helpful, I guess. Not really, but in terms of at least giving the context.
Yeah, it's hurting us all. It's the way it is. We knew it was going to come.
Exactly. Yeah, no, we've had such historic low interest rates. So we've been able to get a lot of deals done in this environment, and that could be shifting. Yeah. So,
yep.
And the amount of gap that each of these projects may need may be increasing. And so, yeah, I think, you know, to the extent that we can all put in a little so that any one funding source isn't tapped more, you know, we're going to try to share in the pain. So certainly if you've got projects that have all of our fundings, we would look to try to talk together about ways to solve that problem. So.
Yeah, and just to give a sense of scope, I mean, I'm aware of about 11 projects that are, you know, yet to start construction, and approximately 30 million of total gap between those 11 projects that I'm aware of. And, you know, some of them I still have to get updated numbers on. So It is a large gap problem to be addressed, and all of us public funders are looking at that together, and also looking to the private lenders to, possibly increase their loans if possible. But yeah, the interest rate issue is making that a little tougher.
Yeah, I guess I should chime in and say that sometimes there is room for debt on some of these projects, sometimes not, but we are also able to fill gaps if the project can support some debt.
Thanks. Any other comments from HDC folks on this whole issue and how we may as a community be able to try to deal with it? I know I was starting to wonder if, in fact, we should require more of a contingency upfront. Yeah, because it's hard. It's hard to think about, is there a way to be more proactive versus reactive, I guess would be the thing. So
I think we would be open to contingency outside of basis, but once contingency is in basis, then you have to spend it. And so it's kind of this catch-22 that we've always had with contingency.
yeah, so maybe that's something that we all as public funders could talk about in terms of, is there a way to try to address it more upfront versus on the back end? But I don't know. Yeah, maybe we all need to have like a reserve. This gets back to, we try to spend every dollar and then it's tapping into the future. Do we have some kind of reserve? Or yeah, it's hard on our ends, right? Like, so that we hold back a little bit. But yeah, that's tough too. And so Bob, what have you seen or heard?
I've heard from some sponsors that they've had their general contractors and even from the investors, because of the uncertainty in commodities, asking for larger contingencies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for that. Okay. Next set of issues. And Jeremy commented as well in the chat about additional permitting requirements, infrastructure requirements, and yeah, how that just adds to the mix here of gaps potentially.
And I would add, from the city's perspective, we are working very hard and intentionally about smoothing the permit process for affordable housing. We've had several pieces of legislation. We passed the emergency legislation last year, which exempted affordable housing from design review. We passed the permanent supportive housing legislation this year that exempts permanent supportive housing forever from design review. We have monthly calls for our permanent supportive housing pilot with all the permitting departments to ensure a smooth process to ensure that the projects move quickly through the permitting process. We have built a relationship with SDCI, SPU, SDOT, Department of Neighborhoods, and there is a list that HDC has. I believe they've distributed it. If you have a problem or a question on a particular infrastructure issue, please reach out to those people on the list. They are trained to understand the importance of affordable housing. I would highly recommend a coordinated conference call with myself or your project lead and the two departments or one department that you're challenged with. We have seen repeatedly, well, it's not necessarily quick, but we have seen repeatedly where the permitting departments come to the table and get creative on solutions to allow affordable housing to save money. So don't give up. It's a pain, I know, but we are changing the culture of the city to really prioritize affordable housing. Kate, I don't know when the emergency legislation will be listed. This is directly tied to the state of emergency and it ends 90 days after the state of emergency. And honestly, I don't know if there's conversation internally about extending the time frame of when that state of emergency ends. But you do have to, the thing about the emergency legislation is you do have to apply for building permit intake within the time frame of the legislation. So you can't, I mean, it's a really touchy time frame, especially if you don't have an award from the Office of Housing. Yeah, thanks, Michelle.
Yeah, Michelle did a shout out on how helpful it's been, the coordination on the permitting from the city. So
yeah, I think Nathan Torgelson is your biggest champion. So he is the director of construction and inspections for SDCI. He is a remarkable champion of affordable housing. And, you know, if you have an idea, especially on DCI's side of the shop, it's a little bit more challenging with other permitting departments that aren't under SDCI. But if there's ideas that we're not addressing, you know, let us know and we'll definitely have a conversation internally.
that's great. Great policy context addition. Thank you for that. So yeah, there's still a lot of discussion at the federal level about changes, new initiatives. You know, in addition to the Affordable Housing Improvement Act that has an increase in the 9% program, which if we don't get, we will be losing resources because the 12.5% that was put in place 4 years ago actually expires this year. So we will desperately still need to see some kind of, hopefully an extension or the provision that's currently in the bill that both Senator Cantwell and Representative Susan Delbene are sponsoring. Provides for a 50% increase above the 12.5% increase already over the next 2 years. So that would be tremendous if we could get that legislation passed and or at least that provision. The other provision that's really critical at the federal level in that bill is lowering of the 50% test for the bonds. So in order to access the 4% credit, you need to issue tax exempt bonds for at least 50% of your project. The bill would lower that to 25% of your projects, which would in effect double the amount of bond cap resources that we have, which obviously would be huge given the level of competition that we have right now for that program. And in addition, President Biden's new budget includes a handful of new initiatives, a whole new tax credit based on certain census tracts, and in addition to big increases in home dollars, HDF dollars, rental assistance. So, you know, amidst all of the policy changes we're contemplating and doing at the state level, we're still really trying to anticipate what the federal initiatives are going to be and track them, and obviously need to advocate for some of the initiatives that are at the federal level. And it would be great if we could get some of that passed going into 2022. So by the end of this year, so that all of that would be overlaid with 2022. That would really help with all of the issues we've been talking about in terms of a pipeline and gaps and needing additional resources. You know, we're still struggling with how do we balance supporting the existing affordable housing stock with trying to develop new stock. Clearly, we don't have enough new stock, and clearly we don't want to lose the old stock. And again, having more resources would be helpful. I think all the way around, you know, we can all agree there's a scarcity of resource issue, and when we're in that environment, we really have to pick and choose and try to prioritize. And so I know at the commission, we're putting in a whole new round of policies on acquisition rehab to try to prioritize health and safety issues and energy efficiency upgrades for any of the rehabs that we're doing. I know there is definitely an aging portfolio in the city of Seattle. And so Lori and I have been discussing how do we prioritize those. And then, you know, again, the commission's really pivoting, at least on the bond side for now, to really prioritize buy-in for a community and really try to develop capacity in the BIPOC community and really look at some systems changes in the whole affordable housing finance system. And so our 2022 policies really focus on by and for community and start to really shift the priorities that we've had in the bond program. And we know we have a lot of work to do in the systems piece of this. And so continue to look to our public funders partners to try to figure out how we best prioritize that. And again, I'd look to anyone to chime in on any of those issues from our panel.
I will just add real quickly, sorry, Tina, that ARCH continues to have a wide range of priorities. New this year, we are adding a priority around racial equity. Be sure to mention that we're not being explicit about trying to define what that means, but giving some good examples. There are, for example, manufactured housing communities that are at risk of conversion in the East Side. We would highly prioritize that. We do strongly support partnerships between agencies. We have a high value on creating home ownership opportunities in East County, which are otherwise out of reach. So many potential ways to address that, but want to start being intentional about naming racial equity as a priority for ARCH.
Great, thank you, Lindsay.
And I was going to say that I actually skipped mentioning the county's priorities for this NOFA. We have our 4 standard priorities that we've had for the last few years, which include homelessness, home ownership, transit-oriented development, and system connected, which is connected to either behavioral health or criminal justice systems. And then our new priority this funding round is equitable, community-driven, affordable housing development. And this priority is to mitigate displacement pressures and ensure that historically marginalized communities have access to affordable housing investments. And it creates, this priority supports the creation of affordable housing developed by and in collaboration with communities facing displacement pressures and communities that have historically experienced policies that limit opportunities for people of color. Projects led by impacted communities, conceived and created through an inclusive community engagement process and driven by a place-based, community-based organization will be prioritized. So that's our new priority this funding round. And the geographic order for that priority is first, projects in unincorporated King County, and secondly, projects in incorporated areas of the county. And we expect to serve households below 80% AMI for homeownership and between 30 and 60 for rentals.
Sorry, I just want to add one more thing, which is it's always an unstated priority that permanent supportive housing is our shared collective goal. But I want to say that the East Side has finally funded permanent supportive housing. We are welcoming more of it. So please, please look outside Seattle for opportunities. Thank you.
And I'll just add from a bigger picture level, you know, the federal government up until this year really has massively disinvested in affordable housing for decades, right? And so it is fallen on the shoulders of the local jurisdictions to tax themselves, to, you know, raise awareness, to create creative opportunities through bonds and unique financing structures. You know, this is a tremendous amount of weight that really needs, you know, but for the Biden administration coming forward with this ARPA resource, and then hopefully next year's infrastructure package, as well as the additional home and CDBG funding, we really need advocacy at the federal level. We can't do it ourselves. It is just too big a burden. And we see when federal resources are available, we can act quickly and we can respond quickly. We can get housing online to support people at a much broader level. Not to suggest that this community isn't doing all it can, but we, you know, it's going to take billions and billions of dollars to address this crisis. And we really need the federal support to do that. I'll add that for ACT rehabs, the city of Seattle is really starting to think about some sort of pre-certification process. I don't, we're not a fan of bureaucracy, right? We don't want to add layers, but what we're seeing with portfolio rehabs is that they often aren't prepared to do the work right away. It takes several months, if not years, to close because the scope isn't well outlined. There's often a relocation component that is added to this that complicates the project, and we want to get to you. And so we want to make sure that you're adequately resourced to do it, and that you are adequately understanding of the scope that you need to do. And so a little bit of money spent on rehabs is critical. And then, we can work with you on collectively as an ecosystem with the state and the county and the commission, like what is the best resource to move this project forward? What is the best time? Because the other thing that we don't want to do is have a rehab occur and empty a building during a pandemic, right? So we are weighing these issues and just thinking about that. So you might see something in the coming year as we, as a collective ecosystem of funders, think about how to best address rehabs, achieving the best outcomes most quickly as we can.
Yeah,
Lori,
and
I
then
think,
Nate,
Lori,
go ahead.
I think Lori kind of queued me up talking about local resources because she knows where I come from. I moved here last year from Indianapolis, and Indiana does not have the local resources, not at all. The 45 million of federal resources that we're managing here is far more than what they have to deal with. So so I moved here. I got to play up my crowd. I moved to Seattle for this. So we have a lot of work to do at Commerce, but we're very invested in this equity work. The state legislature does direct a lot of our activities. This year they put in an equity analysis project for all capital programs at Commerce, which the Housing Trust Fund is very excited about participating in. There's a homeownership disparities study work group that'll be launched and provide a report in the next 12 months. There is a study of the operating costs of permanent supportive housing, and of course, just all the resources that we are also prioritizing for PSH. So a lot of efforts. I would also tie in, our work culture and organizational culture is an important part of this work. So around equity, racial equity, and the Commerce is doing work as a diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our team and others are participating in a book. All of Commerce, there's a book club on the color of law, which it's been out and around for a while, but it's I think really informing our leadership around all staff around what's at stake here. And I've got to do this. We have 9 open positions at present, and I invite you to apply, but you to nominate, inform, refer friends, colleagues, persons who have talent but want to get into affordable housing. We'd love to be a part of the talent development pipeline for the state, so that's a bit of what we have going on contextually.
Right. And then Claire or Bob, do you want to add anything to this discussion? Or Dulcie?
Nope.
I have one other comment on this. One thing Lori said reminded me to let you all know that many of the county's revenue sources are dependent on taxes, and tax revenues are down right now. So that's one of the reasons why our sources are down. So advocacy is really important, to advocate for more funding to come to the county to come to the state and to come to the city for affordable housing.
And then Marty, did you want to go ahead and give a shout out to Angela and Angela, I don't know if you want to say a few words or.
Well, I just tossed it in the chat, but I see she's with us, and Skip is becoming a real thing here. So, and probably soon Pierce County will have shape. And I know that Lindsay's been really working hard at Arch to permeate more deeply in the Snow Valley and the North King County area. So all of our sub-regional groups need a bit of encouragement, because I think they're going to be a critical part of all of this.
Great. So yeah, maybe next year's funder panel can include them. Great. Okay. Anything else on the policy context and some of the things, the additional things that are going on? Because now I think we're going to move into homeless and emergency assistance stuff. So yeah, what's going on in King County Regional Homeless Authority?
This is Kristen. I think I can jump in on that one. I think we had listed this here because we're getting some questions, and we wanted to make sure that folks know that the Regional Homelessness Authority, as I think all of you know, their new director is in place, and they are currently staffing up. So they will not have any interface with our capital round and the ORS, operating and services funding, that we typically, our capital round links to those services dollars. That will happen the same way it has always happened. So for any of you applying for PSH capital, and if you're also applying for any available resources for operating services from the county, that will happen the way it has always happened. So Anna was on the call, she just had to leave. If you have specific questions about that, we'll be happy to answer those more, but her team is also looking at their resources right now. And so as we have done in the past, that will be included in our RFP when it comes out in July.
Great, thank you, Kristen. And then I think we all want to keep in mind what's going on with the eviction moratoriums. And again, when we've got some emergency rental assistance funds out there. And I think a couple of folks have already really talked about the need to really demonstrate an impact on visible homelessness. But I'll open it up here for anyone else to kind of talk about either emergency rental assistance or the eviction moratorium, or kind of the goal the city has, Lori, on impacting homelessness.
Yeah, I'll just say quickly that, you know, there is a lot of rental assistance available. Please, please, please get the word out. You know, I sent an email to a friend of mine the other day who has arrears of rent past due. So please get the word out. Rental assistance is available. Let's prevent eviction if at all possible. We're not quite sure if the eviction moratorium will be extended. But when and if it ends, we're all a little bit terrified, right, of what the effects of that is. And so we're trying to be as proactive as possible with the emergency rental assistance and working with our communities, especially the Black churches, as Don King mentioned as well. That's a great resource to connect with, to make sure that the marketing is available to folks to get the rent assistance out. You know, I can't tell you how much political pressure our elected leaders are facing when it comes to the, you know, I mean, I recognize that homelessness is also quiet as well, right? Doubled up families, situations that aren't seen, but there is so much political pressure on a daily, hourly, minute by minute basis to have a demonstrable effect on visible homelessness. I can't tell you how many calls I get on a daily. What can we do to move people into housing now? And we are satisfied as a community, you know, with all kinds of outcomes that, you know, may not be the healthiest, safest choices, you know, for long-term permanent housing, as we all collectively believe in, I believe. So, you know, a part of our interest, you know, especially when I was talking about ACT rehabs, you know, I appreciate that there are thousands of units, especially in the city, coming online in the next 12 months. It is not a time to empty a building, rehab it, and put existing housed people in it. It really is a time to see if we can have a demonstrable effect on the visible homelessness on the streets. So as you are thinking about your next project or what's going on, immediacy, which is partly why we issued our rapid acquisition NOFA shortly. How many units can we get people housed in before this eviction moratorium ends, before the foreclosure crisis really starts to amp up? As people are suffering on the streets where they're having to live on cement and in unfathomable conditions, let's get people housed as quickly as possible. So that is a huge goal of our office, has been for a while, but you can hear some of the pressures that we're under, but also just the real desire to actually house folks that need it.
This is Kristen again. I want to tag on to what Lori's saying here on two points. In terms of the rental assistance, I think most of you know the county is in our second rental assistance program, phase 2. We have 145 million right now that we are in process on deploying. There was a large landlord process that started in May, and now the tenant lottery is open. So again, to what Lori was saying, please tell folks to come in for that funding. It is running now. I've heard that there may be additional funding coming on top of that 145 million, but have not heard any numbers concretely. So that's where we are right now with 145. And then in terms of homelessness, homelessness is the highest priority of the county right now as well. And so most of you are aware that we are using our $1590 for a new initiative called Health Through Housing. That program is a rapid response program to set up emergency housing, bring new emergency housing or PSH units online. And this year we are expected to acquire and start operating 1,000 new units to help move folks off the street as quickly as we can. So that as well, I think we're all aligned on the priority of homelessness and putting significant resources to that crisis.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you both. Yeah, go ahead, Nate.
I'd say ditto. And I think that one the connection I would like to make is with the Rapid Capital Housing Acquisition Program that we're administering. Some have inquired about rental or renting or leasing. It's permitted by the proviso, but we don't believe that's should be a priority. So we are allowing it in the third round of the NOFA, but we think there are resources
up to, if funds are available.
Right. Yes. Thanks for the coaching. And there are funds available through Commerce, but I know that I do not know how they get delegated to state and city. So, but there are other resources out there to explore for that arrangement. And I want us collectively to just think about if permanent supportive housing is the model in the solution to homelessness, how do we, in this infusion of funding, set that up? We are going to be doing this cost analysis of what the ongoing supportive services costs will be as the pipeline builds of PSH. But we're going to be asked to kind of cash out some of the current funding to support the emergency housing. And so we do need thought partners. And I know that there are coalitions and groups like HDC that'll help us think through the complexities of that. But we definitely want to maximize the impact and maximize the permanent housing that's going to be available here.
Right. All right. Was that our last slide or do we have one more? Thank you. So yeah, we'd welcome questions, conversation about any of the above, we thank you all for taking all this time with us and for the opportunity to share. I have been doing these annual panels for, I don't know, I think it's my 7th, or I don't, yeah, did I do it before? Let's just say 7 for the sake of discussion. And I feel like our collaborative, interactive presentation is by far one of the best ones we've done. So thank you all for putting all this effort into trying to integrate our conversation into one big presentation. So.
Well, thank you, Lisa, for all your work and leading that effort, and to all of your colleagues. We know you'll have plenty to do on any given day, and this becomes a bit of an added issue. I want to thank Lauren and Brian for pulling the meeting together. Lauren, is there anything that you need to add before I do a wrap up?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so I see a couple of questions or thoughts still popping in the chat. Folks can try to pick those up as we move here. Are we missing any announcements that anybody wants to make for the good of the order, things that are happening? Brian, I think you guys are working on a strategic plan and a transition process. I believe you dropped a survey out in the field.
Yeah, good reminder. Thank you. We are working on both the strategic plan and a transition plan. And a survey went out to all members, and it will show up again in the member blast, asking people for input on what we should be looking for in the ED search process. So I encourage you to find that. I haven't passed this by anybody, but let me say there will be prizes for folks who reply, okay? On a lottery basis, if you reply, we will draw a name and someone will get a prize. So please do look for that. It's really important. We're also trying to do is stakeholder engagement on the strategic plan. So you'll be seeing requests for that. So hang in there with us. There's going to be a lot of HDC engagement coming up in the next 4 or 5 months as we undertake both of these important steps.
Super. Thank you, Brian, for all your leadership in that important work, and the rest of the board members who are here with us today. I see several of them have made it to today's session. Don King, I know you have been part of BIPOC Homeownership Initiative, and Lauren, I believe staff have gotten a page up on the website, and that effort's going to get another shot in the arm on the 30th of this month. So for those of you who are really deep into the homeownership side, join Kathleen and all of her peers in that very challenging and important work. And yes, you will notice in the member blast, there are tons and tons of advisory groups and board opportunities out there. And this is one of the more powerful ways that we can have deep influence into all of the things that we're facing, is get the housers in these places and, you know, especially be thinking about your emerging leaders. Great opportunities for folks to step up, show their passion, and really have an influence in some of these important spots. So let's fill them all out with our peeps and see what we can do to really have impact. Patience, I see your face out there. What's going on in the policy world? Anything that you need to share?
Well, thank you, Marty. I think my emphasis is going to go to Tina's words on the gap for funding. And I think that was very clear from the comprehensive discussion that we just saw from these funders who are doing the due diligent work, but yet we continue to have this need for resources. So I'm hoping that this was a renewal of the seed for more advocacy for revenue across the region and across the state. And we look forward to be partnering with our members across the region to be moving that work forward.
Super. Thank you, Patience, and thank you for leading all of those efforts. I know Mallory was busy. We were busy all morning with our North King County Summit. Had a great turnout and some really positive conversations there as well. Jurisdictions are wanting to do more in King County and around the area. And so they need help. And that's where you all come in. We need to step up and provide that technical assistance and support. And more importantly, as we're continuing to see, even in the work in Bellevue, that neighborhood acceptance and cultural change are going to be a big part of all that we need to do. Nate, you and the team at Commerce, we want to thank you for all you're doing. I know you've been handed a lot of parts and pieces to put together here right now. So for such a time as this, you've emerged, and I know you've got a great team, and thank you for everything you guys are trying to do to really get in front of some of these big issues. So
Nate, I just,
yeah, please.
Shout out to Nate for the slides. He was really the force behind doing this kind of integrated slideshow. So big shout out to Nate for the effort there. And then, yeah, everybody kind of filled it all in. So it was great work from all of the public funders. So thanks to all of you for engaging in this way.
Yes, Nate, I'm a little worried. You seem to be demonstrating nonprofit hours with some of your emails. So pay attention. I think that's just about all of the ground that I have to cover as we try to wrap up here. I know that Lauren's working on NDC stuff. I think we've given the green light to start thinking about some fall gatherings. We'll have to all see how, the variants and the vaccinations and all that go, but maybe we can see each other face to face some way, shape, or form. We certainly want to try to get 2 People's Institute trainings, Undoing Racism trainings back on the calendar. Those are essentially done face to face. And so we've got to make that happen. And I think next week we wrap up this year's Housing Development Internship Program. 7 interns, I believe, this year. Thank you for all of our host sites for that. And Lauren is actually taking down names for future host sites for the program. So those of you who want to repeat or want to think about adding an intern to that real estate development field, by all means, please reach out to Lauren. And also if you know people who might actually want to be in the program, please do share that with her as well. And Lauren has also been given the green light to hire an associate back into member services. As you know, Acela Fitch has left us to go work at the county, and she'll launch that application probably in the next few weeks. So if you know of anybody or you want to prevent me from poaching someone, put people up beforehand. We'll try to work honorably with you on that. All right, it's time to say goodbye for the day. Soon enough, we're all going to be face to face. A lot of hard work out there every day. It's a big challenge. Just think about this. We don't have to worry about society finally catching on that there's an affordable housing crisis. I think just about everybody has caught on. Now we just got to get the resources to flow. Keep up the good work, the hard work. Dig deeper every day, and thank you for your time today. Take good care, folks.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thanks.
Be well.